Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the American Family Insurance DreamBank, where we believe in the transformative power of dreams. My name is Andy Frisky. I'm a senior dream curator here at DreamBank, and on behalf of our team, we are thrilled to have you all with us today. For those of you who have attended our virtual or in-person events in the past, welcome back. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I'd love to take a moment to introduce you to DreamBank. So here at American Family Insurance, we believe communities are stronger and the future is brighter when people are actively pursuing their dreams. That's why we created DreamBank, an inspirational community destination and digital experience that is dedicated to dreamers everywhere. But I really want to go ahead and introduce our featured presenter today, AJ Kruse. So AJ is the concept illustrator at humanworks. And AJ needs to make things make sense, not only for himself, but as for you as well. This quality, along with his knack for joining backstage design and front stage presentation, has guided him through a dynamic professional career that began in elementary education and has continued in organizational development. After making the leap to corporate education, AJ led learning and development at 2 Milwaukee area businesses before embarking with 3 remarkable colleagues to launch humanworks. What else makes AJ tick? Faith, family, and Friday night pizza. A little bit about humanworks. humanworks is a Milwaukee-based consultancy, that elevates organizations through a people-focused lens, crafting custom talent solutions around core values and people touchpoints, strategic planning, and leadership development. Without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to AJ. AJ, take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Andy. It's obviously a great privilege to join American Family DreamBank for the first time. So thank you so much, Andy, and everyone at DreamBank for having me here. And thanks all of you for dedicating a little bit of your day over to this activity and this exercise and conversation. So I'm really excited. Actually, something humanworks believes in sincerely is starting everything we do with gratitude. So I have to start there. And there's so much to be grateful for right now. Let's see, 2 weeks ago, I think it was, humanworks celebrated our 2nd anniversary. That was a big milestone, a lot to be grateful for there. But specifically today, I am grateful for you, your time, and the opportunity I have to share this whole conversation with you. It's something that not only myself, but my whole team, humanworks, has really been focused on since our inception. This idea of core values and what they give you. So we're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to put you to work today doing an activity as well. But I've got to say this first. You see my picture and my title on the slide, the concept illustrator. I get asked about that all the time. What does that mean? And, you know, it really means I get to live my unique ability. I get to use my strengths. I get to work in the background, on the back end, on ideas and concepts. Then I get to launch them all the way over to the front stage and share them in a format just like this with our clients and with audiences like you. So there's a lot of gratitude coming from me today and the humanworks team for this opportunity. So thanks so much. That's my introduction. What I'm going to need next is an introduction from you. And this is how I want you to do it, okay? So for an introduction, I actually just want you to share something very important to you. So I can already see a few people sort of calling in from the chat. It's fantastic. Or the comment section. If you take a look at your screen, flip over to the comment section, I may have a question or two for you today, and that's where I'll ask you to share your thoughts. So again, your introduction to everyone, to me, to the whole audience is something very important to you today. Why am I going that direction? Well, I think it's actually a pretty good warm-up for the work we're going to do in just a little bit. If I was answering this question, it would be, well, rest. Today, that's what's on my mind. Just being honest, everybody. Rest has been big on my mind. I think it's because I've needed a little bit more of it recently, and I've sort of been hunting for that rest. Got some good rest last night, so I should have some energy for you all today. I know we're used to introducing ourselves with our name, our role, our employer. No, I just want to know something really important to you. And looking in the comment section, I'm already seeing some of those things coming through. So thank you so much, everybody who's populating a thought there. Yes, family. Yes to mental health, family. Oh, those really important things. That's fantastic. I think the comments I've already seen are great examples of what my ground rule for today is going to be, everyone. And my ground rule for you today, here's what I need you to do while you're on the call with me today. Go all in. Just go all in. We're going to do some work today. I'm going to ask you to really dig in and think about yourself. Think about what's very important to you and a few other critical questions. give yourself over to this. You've locked in for the time. Now lock in your mind and sort of give yourself over to the activity. Go all in. I promise. I think there's going to be something good for you on the other side that way. So thanks for the introductions. I keep seeing wonderful stuff coming through in the comments as far as helping others, kids, connecting with self. Thanks. I'm going to keep asking questions as we go, and I hope to hear from more of you as we do. So that takes me to the game plan for today. 3 things on the left side of your screen are going to tell you the right side of your screen are going to tell you just what we're working on today. First and foremost, I want to define the value of core values and the way that I would set that up. Really, I want you to think about, what does authoring personal core values give you? That's what I want you to walk away with. One of the value points for today is just knowing what's the true value of core values. The second thing you see on the list is that activity I mentioned. We're actually going to take time. I'm going to put you to work today authoring your own core values. So you see some things on the left side of my screen, and those are some reminders about supplies. Okay, so something that you'll need to do this activity are sticky notes. So I have some here. You see some pictured on the screen as well. It doesn't have to be a Post-it note. It doesn't have to be a sticky note. If it was just a stack of small pieces of paper, that would work really well too. Yes, something to write with, a marker, a pencil, a pen, something like that, and room to spread out. So we're going to have you spreading out these individual notes that we're going to be taking and doing as part of this activity. So give yourself a little room to spread out. You see the board behind me? If you have a board like that, you can use a wall if those notes are sticky. You can use a desktop, the floor, whatever you need. Last but not least, I want to call out another tool, and some of you could be familiar with it. It's Google Jamboard. That's the icon you see over there by the sticky notes and the marker. If you're familiar with that tool and you prefer to do this project totally digitally, that's a great tool to do this with. So if you're familiar with Jamboard, I won't be teaching it or showing it today, but if you're familiar with it, it'd be a great tool to do this activity. All right, last but not least, maybe the most important part. Once we've authored core values or given you at least a start today, at least a start, there are a lot of people who want to take this activity and complete it beyond and after our sort of live session today. But once you've got a start and once you've got those core values authored, we need to know what to do with them. They're there. How do I get some value from them? So that's going to be the last part of our conversation. You'll see examples along the way that should help you too. All right. So I've got another question for you, and I'll be leaning towards those of you who are sort of live on this session with us and in the comments. I'm going to give you this question, get you started. And after I get you started thinking about that, I'm going to take us to a story to set up our conversation. So here's the question. I know we're all on computers right now, so I know it's totally possible for you to cheat and take a look and look up a website or look in a handbook if you have one near. But do you know, or can you remember off the top of your head without looking, any of the core values for your current or a former employer? Okay, so it could be a current employer, could be a former employer. Do you know, or can you think of off the top of your head, a core value that belonged to or was part of your either current or former employer? Start thinking about that question. Why do I ask that question? Well, whenever I hear about core values, I usually always hear about them in connection with a business, in connection with a company. That's usually where we hear about core values, and that's totally normal. So I was just curious if you knew off the top of your head any of the values of a business that you either have worked for or work for now, because I want to tell you about another business. And you can see the name of the business down in the corner, but there's a story for me to share around values. If you worked for Johnson & Johnson, you would probably know something called the Credo. It's so important to Johnson & Johnson. You actually see it etched in stone here. I'm taking you to New Jersey in one of their headquarter buildings where you can find all 311 words of the Credo etched in stone. Now, you may or may not have heard this story before because it's been published multiple times. One of the most recent times that this story has been published that I've seen is in a wonderful book by an author named Daniel Coyle called The Culture Code. So here it is. I'm holding it up if you're looking at the picture. The Culture Code. Those of you who are culture nuts, love to read about culture, Daniel Coyle's book is a fantastic place to go. But he brought this story into that book. So I want to read for you the first few sentences of Johnson & Johnson's Credo. They sound like this. We believe our first responsibility is to doctors, nurses, and patients, to mothers and fathers, and all others who use our products and services. In meeting their needs, everything we do must be of high quality. Those are the first few words of a very long statement called the Credo. Now, our story doesn't begin when those words were written. They were written a very long time ago by one of the founding family members. Our story actually begins in 1982. In 1982, at that time, Johnson & Johnson had a CEO named James Burke, who had actually been evaluating that Credo and wondering if it was still relative to where the company was in 1982, whether or not he should do away with it and replace it with something else. And after deciding to keep it in 1982, he found out the value and importance of that Credo when tragedy struck. Tragedy struck in 1982, and again, you may or may not remember this bit of history, when 7 people who ingested extra-strength Tylenol, one of Johnson & Johnson's primary products, 7 people in the Chicago, Illinois area actually passed away after ingesting extra-strength Tylenol. You can imagine what happened next. The company itself went into panic mode. Overnight, they went from selling pharmaceuticals to selling poison, and now the whole country was hearing about it. Thousands and thousands of decisions needed to be made very quickly. Perhaps one of the most important decisions that needed to be made was what to do with the other 31 million pills on shelves across America. Now, as you could imagine, the FBI, the FDA, they all got involved in an investigation around what in the world was going on, and they determined there was a bad actor somewhere in the Chicago area who had laced those pills with cyanide poison. So they told Johnson & Johnson, you don't need to pull all the pills off all the shelves, probably in the Chicago market, but nowhere else. You should be fine. You can save your company that way. And James Burke and the leadership team at Johnson & Johnson made a completely different decision. They decided to pull all 31 million pills off the shelf. As a result, of course, you can imagine the company's stock went down to near zero, and things weren't looking good for Johnson & Johnson. But something kind of remarkable happened through that decision and the thousands of others decisions that were made. There sort of became really clear to everyone paying attention to the situation, a remarkable consistency was present in all of those decisions being made. And I bet you can draw a line back to why. When asked about this for years to come following 1982, James Burke would point back to the Credo and say, it was easy to be consistent when making those decisions. It was easy to know what to do when it came to the 31 million pills across shelves in America when we look back to the Credo. You see, all of the consistency and all of the clarity that came for the leaders of Johnson & Johnson came from this long 311-word statement that told them exactly who they were, what they stood for, and what they should be doing. So, what was the value to Johnson & Johnson? Well, years later, when Johnson & Johnson's stock had risen not only back to the levels it was before, but exceeded them, one pundit said, wow, this is the greatest comeback since Lazarus. But it wasn't that much of a surprise to Johnson & Johnson because they knew who they were and they knew what they stood for. And that clarity led them to make the right decision over and over again. So, what's the real value of core values? Well, there are 3 things that I want to point out here that Johnson & Johnson, who was following their values, got, and every other company who lets their values act as their guide. One thing that core values will do for a company is they'll set an expectation for how that company interacts with everyone else. So when I say everyone, I mean everyone. And if you remember the first few lines of the Credo, it actually called out the doctors, nurses, the moms and dads, the parents. It called out all the stakeholders that it was responsible to. So the Credo really set an expectation for Johnson & Johnson. The Credo also set Johnson & Johnson apart. It differentiated, Johnson & Johnson. And in fact, it helped connect Johnson & Johnson with other people who shared those values. Look at how Johnson & Johnson was rewarded by the American public for following their core values and looking at the safety of all people. Consumers responded by saying, that's right, that's the right thing to do. Now, when you think about that, and how that value sort of connects with anyone else who shared that values, maybe you can even think of a company today that you connect well with because you share some values that they have as well. Last but not least, the core values, the Credo in the case of Johnson & Johnson, they give direction. That is, they help with decision making. In other words, they're saying, if this is who we are, then what are we going to do? They tell what a company will and won't do. When companies follow their values, they tend to stay in line with exactly who they are and what they should be doing. Problems, though, happen when companies don't follow those values. A usual story that I would share at this juncture would be about the company Enron. And if anyone knows the story of Enron, you know there was a great deal of corruption. Well, one of their core values was integrity. Not very much good that did them, because they weren't living in alignment with those values whatsoever. So when a company follows its values, it's on the right path. But problems happen when either you don't follow those values, or those values mean nothing. They're not alive. They're not active. They're just there. They're words on a wall, maybe in a handbook, but they don't mean anything because they aren't lived by the business, so by the leaders of that organization or its team members. But there's one more remarkable thing to point out here as we start taking these steps into the value of values and start looking at our own values. Here's the thing. These three values, these three benefits of core values are just as true for a company as they are for each of you. So your personal core values set an expectation for how you interact with everyone in the world. They set you apart and they help you connect with other people who share those values. And of course, they guide your decision making. That's what your values can do for you. So as I'm glancing over at the comments, yep, I see maybe one or two great values that you sort of remembered, maybe from a company that you either work for now or have worked for in the past. Hopefully you felt those while you were working at that organization. If you didn't feel those or you didn't connect your own values to them, chances are that wasn't the right landing spot for you, or something feels a little off. What I want to do next is actually dive all of us into the core value authoring activity. That's where we're headed next, so get your supplies ready, because I want to help you uncover something that's already there. And you're going to hear me say that one more time about your core values. We're not going to discover something that doesn't exist yet. As we go through this authoring activity, we're simply going to be uncovering something that's already there, and hopefully setting you on a path through these steps and questions we're going to do together to help you uncover and find the right language, words to craft that statement together to really show not only yourself, but others what your core values really are. So I'm going to show you a picture that hopefully is, again, a little bit of a foreshadowing of the mess we're about to make, but it's a good mess, I promise. So here we go. I'm going to give you a little work time, but first I've got to set you up. Step one in this core value authoring activity requires you to have that stack of notes and something to write with. It also requires you to have a little bit of room to spread out, because step one is meant to be a flurry of activity. And I'm going to ask you to do something that you don't normally do, and it might even be a little tricky for you. I'm going to ask you to let your mind go wild, go free, just go. That's the flurry of activity that I'm looking for. There are two questions on the screen. What's important to you and what makes you unique? I want you to answer those questions, but I want you to put every thought that you have that could answer one of those questions on an individual note, kind of like the mess in the background there. So every thought that comes, you're going to write it down, whether it's one word or a few words or a short phrase, and you're going to peel that note off and start the next one. Now, you could answer those questions one at a time, or you could answer them at the same time, or you could switch back and forth. It's 100% up to you, but I have a few more important things for you to think about before you get started. First and foremost, I want you to suspend judgment of the thoughts that you have as you answer those questions. Instead of filtering it through that cognitive filter that says, is this a good thing to write down or not? I just want you to write it down. So suspend the judgment. No idea is too small. If it's something that's important to you and it comes to mind, it doesn't matter if it's something as gigantically important to you as, say, your family or your loved ones, or something as simple as coffee. Whatever it is that comes to your mind, don't judge it, just write it down. Nothing's too big, nothing's too small. Also, I don't want you to worry about repeated words or phrases. It's okay. If you're not sure if you wrote that word before, don't worry about it. Just write it again. Not a big deal. So again, we're gonna have these two questions up in front of you. We're gonna give you about around 8 minutes, maybe 5 to 8 minutes, depending on how we progress here, to work on those. And your goal is to get at least 20 to 25. I have one more tip, and I know you've seen it on the screen there. If you get stuck, and you will get to a slowdown point in 8 minutes for sure, try asking yourself the opposite of the question. That would sound something like this. What's not important to me? When you ask yourself the opposite of a question like that, it will often drive you back to what is. So you may come up with a few more thoughts. All right, here's how it's going to work. I'm going to start my timer in just a moment. I'm going to stay here. I'll mute myself so you don't hear any background noise, but I'll leave my camera on. You'll know that I'm right here with you, and you can feel free to comment in any question that you have as you work. You're taking 8 minutes to answer these 2 questions. You're going to make a mess. You're going to spread out all those words in front of you as you write each thought individually on its own piece of paper. All right, without further ado, my timer has started. It's up to you now to do the work. Let's do step 1. All right, everybody. This is AJ just chiming in for about a halfway mark check. Hopefully you're all going through that flurry of activity and mind dump successfully. Remember, no idea is too big or too small. Even if it doesn't quite make sense to you, it's okay to write it down and give it one of those notes. Spread those out in front of you as you go. If you need anything from me, or if you have any questions, feel free to put them into the comments section. I'm here and watching along. Your goal is to have at least 20 to 25. I'll give you a 1-minute warning when we get there. All right, everybody, let's treat this like our 1-minute warning. If you've got a final thought or a few final thoughts to get down onto a note, by all means, get them onto that note. In 1 minute, we're going to get everybody back together. All right, as you're wrapping up that final thought, feel free to throw into the comments section anything that you found repeated. Did you have anything repeated? If you had something repeated, love to see those coming through in the comments section as you look across sort of that mess that hopefully you've made out in front of you, all the different sticky notes. If you've got one that was repeated, feel free to throw that in the comments. I'd love to know what word was repeated. And by the way, we didn't want to rule out repeated things because repeated things have significance in this activity. So that's a good thing, everyone. That was step one. You did it. You now know step one. You can always return to step one and continue this. In fact, you'll hear a story a little bit later today about someone who went back and sort of started over, had to repeat that way. I'm going to take us now to step two. All right, so step two, well, it looks a little bit like the board behind me, but it's going to be another working session. This is going to be an affinity map. So I'm going to be asking all of you to take that mess that you made in front of you and make it a little bit cleaner. We're going to ask you actually to categorize or put every single Post-it note that you wrote down or every single piece of paper that you wrote down into 5 to 7 different groups. That's the goal. The goal is to actually group these thoughts into 5 to 7 groups. Now, people have asked me, hey, what if I only have 4 groups? What if I have 8? This is your activity, but I would encourage you to stay underneath that 7 mark, because more than that just seems to be too much in my experience for anyone doing this activity. So stay under 7. Could you have 4? It could be 4. There are a lot of tips that go into the work that you're about to do, everyone. But I just want to make sure that you've got a good idea of what the goal here is. So the goal here is that each one of these groups is going to group like ideas. And those ideas came from your mind. So if it makes sense to you, group them together. Okay. Someone else could look at those words and say, wow, I have no idea why those 2 things are together. Doesn't matter. It makes sense to you. So you're going to be forming these groups. And as you do, I have a couple rules to follow. Okay. And you see them down there in the mint lettering. If there's something that you don't know where it belongs, it's okay to put that in what I'd call a parking lot or set it aside, but you have to come back to it later. You're not allowed to throw away any pieces of paper, especially the repeats that we called out just a little bit ago, okay? So don't throw away the repeats. Don't throw away the ones that don't fit anywhere. You have to keep them, and they have to make their way into one of those groups eventually, okay? So no throwing anything away. Also, no stacking. Keep everything visible so you can see it all at the same time. So like you see in the background picture, like you see on the board behind me, make sure you can see everything all at once. Those are some of the big sort of rules / tips that I have put on this step. Everything must be visible. Nothing gets thrown away. Use the parking lot idea if you need to. Okay. I did see coming in through comments several things that came back to sharing with others and helping others. That's fantastic. You'll have to decide if those belong in a group together or in a different group. All right. So those repeats. All right, everyone. I'm going to give you roughly the same amount of time to do this part of the activity, step 2. And I'm going to start that timer now. Again, I'm not going to go away. You'll see me here. I'm here to answer questions if you have them. If you haven't started already, go ahead, because my timer's going. You're going to have about that 7 to 8 minute mark again to work on this step. Good luck with step 2. Reach out if you need anything. Okay, everybody, this is where I chime in at sort of that halfway point again, just as sort of a check on how everybody's doing. Hopefully you're getting those groups sort of boiled down. By the way, this is yours. Don't be afraid to change your mind halfway through separating those groups. Look back into sort of what your gut tells you. That's what I would encourage you. What does your gut tell you about that idea that you wrote down? And where does it really belong amongst your groups? Feel free to change your mind and change your mind back again. This is yours. So only you know just what the feeling is that brings that group together. Trust your gut, everybody. It's going to guide you well. I'll be here. I saw a little love for Jamboard in the comment section, so you're welcome. I can't take credit for that. Working with another group, someone said, I'm going to do Jamboard, and since then, it's been a great share. Enjoy the work, enjoy the challenge. I'll be here in comments section, and I will chime back in when we're at that 1-minute warning. Okay, if you've got anything sitting in a parking lot right now, any of those cards or pieces of paper sitting over in a parking lot right now, it's time to force yourself to give them to one of the groups. Or if you have to, add a new group if they don't belong with anything else. Start emptying out your parking lot, everybody. You've got about 1 minute left. Anybody who feels that they're done, if you want to use the comment section, let me know, how many groups did you come up with while everyone's working to finish in this last minute? How many groups did you come up with? All right, everybody. Hopefully you've got that parking lot cleared out. Those of you who commented in, it looks like around 4 or 5 groups for the most part. That's what I'm seeing so far. That's a great number. You're going to have a lot to work with there. Fantastic. So everybody, you know step 1. Let's recap a little bit. We did the mind dump. We answered those 2 questions. What's unique about me? What's important to me? And we sort of flooded the field in front of us with all the ideas that came to mind in the time I gave you. Then we said, put them into an affinity group. Group the like ideas together, and only your mind knows how they should go together. You're the boss. So now we've made 5 to 7 groups. Next, we're going to step 3. And step 3 is going to look a little bit like a mess again. So the foreshadowing you've got on step 3, here's the scribbles. But what are we really doing in step 3? We're actually going to take those different groups you've made now, the 4 or 5 or however many you came up with. We're going to take those groups and we're going to boil them down into a short phrase that summarizes the idea that brought those things together. So we're going to author core value phrases. You see a couple ideas on the screen right now. It says, hey, yep, boil it down to the most important idea that exists here. Summarize each one as an actionable phrase in present tense. I'm going to show you a little bit more about that in just a second. And then just know these phrases that we're crafting here are really going to be our core value phrases in the end. Before I send you off to work on that for a few minutes, I want to take you a little bit through some steps that I would share with anyone who's working on authoring a core value phrase for themselves. So I want to talk about what I believe makes a core value great. There are 3 things here that I want to share. And the first one is, you heard me say the word gut already today. The first one is gutsy. Okay. A core value is gutsy. It's the real authentic you. What does that mean? Well, that means you're going to only choose words that have a lot of meaning to you, that you feel like they really fit me. They're going to be kind of real and kind of raw. Those are the kind of words you're going to be looking for while you bring this phrase together. Also here, I have to note, beware the aspirational goal. Okay. We're talking about your core values. And another thing I said earlier is they are already there. They are who you are. What I want you to look out for is look out for words or phrases that are something you hope you will become in the future, like an aspirational goal. I wish I was this. I hope I was this. That's what I want you to look out for. So we're really looking for the real authentic you, that gutsy you. Look out for the aspirational goals. Try not to include them. Second, it has to be unique. All right. And one thing that I have to encourage here to all of you is it might not sound unique to you. That's okay. Why might it not sound unique to you? Well, because you do it all the time. You're living it. It's you. So it doesn't sound like something special or different. It might just sound like you. And that's okay, because you have a way of doing this that's unlike anyone else's. So gutsy, unique, and active. So when we say put it together in a short, actionable phrase, we really mean that. This core value is best written as something that you can do. So that's my encouragement to you. Make this phrase something you can actively do. I want to give you a few examples, and those examples are going to come from my team. So please meet Rebecca, Sarah, and Sean, the other members of humanworks, and take a look at their personal core values. Hopefully, as you scan them, you can see some of the same kind of things we just called out, gutsy, unique, and active in their core values. So if you take a look at Sean, escape, that's an active thing. How does Sean escape? Well, you have to talk to Sean about that, right? Sense it, lead a theatrical life. Those are all things you can do. So they're wonderfully active, right? They're gutsy and very unique to who Sean is. So my encouragement as you go through the next step, which is that authoring step, is to think that way. What are words that really mean something to me that I would attach myself to? This is really the real, gutsy, raw, authentic me. What's unique about this phrase? That's something, the way I do this is the way no one else does this. And of course, active. How can I make my words and my phrase an active thing that I can actually look at and say, oh, that's like a present tense verb thing. I can do that. I know how to do that. Those are my encouragements. So I'm going to leave this up on the screen while I give you your last working portion of our authoring activity today. So for roughly the same amount of time, you're going to be sent off to work here on authoring those phrases. The core value ideas about what makes a great core value are on the screen, along with that, the tips around authoring phrases there. Let me know if you need anything from me. My timer has started. Good luck pulling together as much as you can around some phrases for your categories. All right, we're nearing that halfway point again. Everybody, don't be afraid to go back. Remember, we said you could change what group and what affinity group, what idea goes where. Don't be afraid to go back and look at that again as you're working on these phrases. Also, give yourself permission to be a rough draft today. That's okay. Rough drafts are where it starts. So give yourself permission to make a mess and be a rough draft today. I'll check back in when we have sort of that 1-minute warning time coming up. Good luck with authoring your phrases. All right, we're starting to come up on that 1-minute warning period of time. So if you have a core value phrase that you like, I agree, Cindy, this is hard work. This is a deep dive. This is why you had to go all in. It's hard work. It makes you think. But if anybody has a core value phrase that they've come up with that they're kind of proud of and feeling good about, feel free to share. I would love to see it in the comments or hear it as I give everybody their last minute to work here. Good luck in your last minute finding some rough draft phrases. Okay, everybody. We're sort of at that time where I'm going to pull your thoughts and mind back to the conversation at hand. Thanks for all your hard work. We said we were going to go all in. We meant it. So those of you who have shared a few in the comment section, love them. Keep them coming. Those are fantastic. Most of the time, when I go through these 3 steps, the first thing that I'll hear from anyone who does them with me is, well, this is a start, but I need more time. And I see that in the comment section. It is just a start, but you've got all three of these first steps now. You know the questions, you know the steps, you can carry this out in your own time. So where I want to take you are a few suggestions or tips for going back and working on this authoring in your own time or on your own time following today's presentation. So here are a few authoring tips, everybody. The first one, maybe it's really common sense, but it bears saying, take time free from distraction, whatever that time is in your world, and give yourself over for a few minutes to this activity. Look at it again and again. That's good. That's okay. I call it alone time because some people tell me, AJ, I do my best thinking late at night, early in the morning, on my commute, whenever that time is, when I'm outside, mowing the lawn, raking leaves, you name it, whatever that time is, free from distraction, give yourself that time. But as you do, don't tell yourself you're going to finish this all in one shot. It's okay to take small amounts of time to tackle this and then walk away, come back refreshed later. One of the biggest pitfalls I think you might step into would be to say, I like that activity. I want to know my core value phrases and have it all written down. So I'm going to sit down and I'm going to spend the next 60 or 90 minutes until I've got it done. That's something I would do. And I'd have to discipline myself away from doing that and say, no, 10 or 15 minutes at a time. That's it. Put good thinking to it, put it down and come back. That's my encouragement for you as you continue to author. Also, don't forget about the people around you who know you best. Run your ideas for these core values past them once you're complete and let them react to them. Say, does this sound like me? Can you see me in this? Do you hear me in this? Do you know what I'm getting at? They might even have a suggestion you want to adopt, because sometimes the truth is some people know us just as well as we know ourselves, maybe even better. So the next tip, remember, avoid those aspirational things. It's just a little reminder here, but you're looking for that real truth now, not something you hope to be true in the future, not those aspirations. So look at that real self now. And then, of course, trust your gut. I'll say it again. Trust your gut. It's so critical that you don't settle for a phrase or some words that sort of get you there. You won't get the whole value out if you don't love them. So don't settle. It's okay to write a draft and live with it for a little while and return to that draft later. Maybe even repeat this exercise on your own one more time and explore where you land and what you end up with and see what else can come out to improve the phrases that you started with. So my encouragement there is don't settle. And by the way, your comments are exciting. I love watching them come through as you're refining those phrases in your head. Really great example. So I hope everybody else is looking there too. Thanks those of you who are joining live today for populating those and being willing to get them out and share. So what's next? So you've gone through the steps of authoring core value phrases, but there's more. There's more coming your way that's really going to help them come to life. So think about this. If you know your values for you, that's good. But you know what? I know things and then I forget them. Or I know them and I don't think about them when I'm supposed to. And I know them, but other people don't know them around me. So really bringing values to life means we've got to go a few more steps together, okay? There's a little bit more to this activity, and I have some more examples to share with you to illustrate what I'm going to encourage you to do with your core value phrases, okay? So first and foremost, I'm going to encourage all of you to take the time, once that phrase has been completed, perfected, or at least a good first draft is done, to actually write down in explicit words exactly what this value means in 1 to 2 sentences. Exactly what does this value mean? This is going to help make those values crystal clear. So everyone knows what that means. You and anybody else you introduce these values to, it's going to make them crystal clear. We also want to make them easy to share and easy to remember. And we want to make them fun to look at. So that's the second thing I'm going to encourage you to do. 2 things here. Write those value descriptions, that 1 to 2 sentences that really define what your core value statement means, and see if you can connect those values with an image. Why? Because an image makes them a little bit more fun to share or post or put up on your wall, which will in turn make them even easier to remember. We do both of these steps to increase the likelihood that you're going to put these things to work in your life, or they're going to influence you in some important ways as you're making decisions and making connections. So I want to share some examples with you. You all saw the humanworks team. Now you're going to see the humanworks team pictures. So there's sort of 3 different varieties here in front of you as far as core value images go. Rebecca loved the idea of building this image around a simple plant sort of visual. That's exactly what she did. So you see hers sort of as leaves, as the sort of heart of that flowering, part of the top of the flower, and of course the soil or the pot underneath. Sarah said, I want this to be something that reminds me of where I came from. And she came from northern Wisconsin. So that's where home base and growing up was for Sarah. So said it has to be sort of that way, earthy, something like the up north. When I asked Sean, well, what visual do you want to put to your values? He said, I have no idea what kind of cool artistic thing to make about it. I said, well, let's talk about a picture that means a lot to you. The kind of picture that you would put up on your wall or share, put on your desk, or I don't know, make a background for your computer screen or something. He said, well, I have a picture for you. Here's the picture. It's Sean immediately after he completed a very, very kind of dangerous hike at Angel's Landing. So if you've ever heard of the Angel's Landing hike, if you know that it's a little dangerous. Every year there are some hikers that don't come back down, which is frightening. Well, Sean successfully completed that hike at Angel's Landing. If you don't know Angel's Landing, by the way, go Google it. It's a pretty wild hike. So Sean completed Angel's Landing by himself successfully, and his troop waiting for him at the bottom was there to take this picture. It's his victory, and that's what he did with his core values. All we did was lay those words over a picture, with pretty much everybody can do right there from their cell phone, which is a great way to quickly craft an image that you want to keep and you want to share with your core values. Some more examples coming your way, not only of visuals that you can put to core values, whether you have an artistic flair or not, but also those phrases and those descriptions. I want to show you a few examples from people who have gone through this session and completed that and given me permission to share back with all of you. First, I'm going to go to this screen, okay? So you sort of see 2 that were created as a square here. One individual really wanted to add some artwork to that image. One individual said, I'm not so much the artsy way, but I love color, and I'll make them in different directions, and I'll just make it a tapestry that I like. And that's exactly what they did. The one thing that I love about this image is they each sort of show you their sentence or their statement that really describes exactly what that value means right along with them. And yes, we have to call out Dory because of keep swimming, just keep swimming. And I love that value. So we have to call that one out. That one's really exciting. Another set of examples, one on the left there, I always say, everybody oohs and ahs at this example. They all love it. Her brother-in-law is a graphic designer, so she leaned on brother-in-law and said, I love trees, I have values, put it all together and make it beautiful. So she leaned on some expertise that she had right there in her family. And the one on the right, again, an important picture, a picture that had meaning to that individual. And then the value and the value phrase right along with it. Put this together themselves, shared back with me, and gave me the opportunity to share back with you all as an example. So those 2 steps are really critical. Something that I mentioned earlier is critical as well, and it's about not settling. It's about creating a draft and then living with that draft, making sure that those values are the ones you love. Those phrases and descriptions really are who you are. So I want to tell you a story, and it's about myself. The first time I was putting this activity together, I had starts and stops. So you can see some different color Post-it notes there, because that was me starting and stopping this activity as I was drafting and creating it, trying to figure out what the right way to do this in, what's the right order. So you all started today. Today is a start, but you can continue this in some of the ways we've talked about afterward. You can pick it up again, start from scratch, or pick it up again and start where you left off. It's 100% up to you. I want to share that I started with these 5 values. That's where I began. But that's not where I finished. I lived with those values for about a year and a half. I didn't have an image, and I didn't have sentences that I liked to describe them. So I wanted to go back to the drawing board and recraft. And that's what I did. So now some of those same values, be resilient, make your mark, those stayed there. And some other words and phrases came in along with an image. And the reason I created this image, everybody, was because I feel like I'm always broadcasting something. So I was inspired by an old NPR radio tower type logo. I thought that's kind of me. I'm always putting a thought out there into the world. So this is where I am now, everyone. I know you'll all get there too. I know you can. But where I want to take our conversation to wrap, where I want to go in our final sort of step here, isn't about those first 3 steps about crafting your core values phrases. It's not about how to author those sentences or those value descriptions and find an image or a way to keep those things visual in your world, in your life, so that you remember them. It's really about what you can do with the work that we're doing today. When we started this conversation, I illustrated to you some of the values of core values. And of course, we used the Johnson & Johnson example to highlight that. After we highlighted the values for the business, we turned it around and said, those same values exist for you. So think about businesses and what they do with their core values. They write them down, yes. They share them. They post them on their intranet site, in their handbook, maybe on their website, their public website. They might even mount them up on the wall, make a beautiful picture. We just talked about doing that. But really, to keep values alive, a business has to do so much more. Think about your senses. Where would you hear about those values? Where might you see them if a business was keeping them alive? I want you to think about that in order to sort of pivot and think about yourself. How can I use my core values to benefit me as I go through life? I'm going to start with direction. Let's talk about direction a little bit. I talked about decision making just a little bit earlier in this presentation. When I talked about decision making, what I meant was that I used the phrase, if this is who I am, what will I do? I think that's an important phrase for you all to remember as well, because values, your values, help you assess that. If this is who you are, what are you going to do? It's such a critical step. When I coach a leader around core values or an individual around their core values, I always tell them core values help you make, explain, and evaluate decisions. Think that through. If this is who I am, what am I going to do? That's values helping you make a decision. To explain your decisions to others, this is what I did, and here's why. Because these are the most important things to me. These are the drivers in my life. And finally, when it comes to evaluating a decision, what I mean by that is learning from a decision, saying, okay, those were the decisions I made. Let me pause, reflect, and learn from that. Was I living my values? Did I put them in play when I made that decision? Was I even thinking about them? Or what was I thinking about? An important sort of pivotal moment in the world history that we're all living through right now is this pandemic. And I always believe around core values, when something shakes you down to your core, it tends to reveal or uncover those core values one more time. So we're seeing things in the workforce like the Great Recession, or excuse me, the Great Resignation, rather. We're seeing people reassessing and reevaluating what does matter to me and what am I going to do about it? And I believe that is a crisis of values. So that's people saying it's time to go back to my values, look at what matters most, and make some decisions, maybe different decisions that I had made previously based on what matters to me most, based on my core values. So the first one is direction. That's something that you can do with your core values once those phrases are complete, once you have those descriptive sentences. Hopefully, once you've found a way to get an image to that so I can put it on my desk or keep it top of mind, you can turn around and use your values to make, explain, and evaluate the decisions you're making. The next thing I want to point out is connection. Values, we said in the beginning of this conversation, values differentiate you, and you tend to be drawn to people who share your values. So if you are in that job seeker spot right now, you can be using the language you're crafting through this values activity, of course, for your resume, of course, for your LinkedIn bio. But how else can you be building that language into how you answer questions and how you introduce yourself? What's your personal elevator pitch? Who are you? If you're meeting someone, and how can you share those values with them? This is who I am, and now you want to find out about them. Isn't it exciting when you find out that you share a core value with someone else? I always find that so exciting. I get excited when I'm getting to know someone and I find out, wow, you have the same values as I do, or a few of your values and mine really align well. I think this is going to be a great relationship. So these values, whether you're building them into the language you're using to introduce yourself professionally, personally, or you're finding ways to share those with everyone you meet, I believe are going to help you determine A, the right relationships to build and foster, and B, help you determine who you are as far as sharing those publicly, and in a way, sort of crafting a personal brand, if you will. This is who I am. So that's the connection portion of what values can give you. Direction, connection. The last one is action. So action, to me, sort of where values go first. Every single thing you do should be driven by your values, right? All the actions you take, all the things you do. If I was coaching an organization at large, so the leadership team of an organization, or if I'm coaching an individual around values, I'll have the same encouragement. I encourage you and them to literally write down examples of what does it look like when I live my values? What do these values look like? So put that in the context of an organization. If these are the organizational values, in your role as a leader, what does it look like? Write it down. Give me a sentence. What exactly does it look like when you do that value? How do you do that value in your role? So I can turn that question back to you. I can say, based on the value draft work you've done today, could you, and by the way, use the comment section if you think of something. I'd love to see it. Can you think of an example where you get to live your personal core values in your work? How do you do that? What do you do to live your values in your work? As you're thinking about that, I'll tell you all about myself. If you worked with me, you saw one of my values was make your mark. If we worked together, you would see me searching for ways to contribute, edit, update, highlight, improve everything we worked on together. So if we're doing a project together, I'm always going to be looking to leave that better than when I found it. You'd get used to that. You'd see me living that value out in my work. Another value of mine is talk it through. Big surprise there. You've just listened to me talk at you for more than an hour. I need to talk through my ideas. I need to talk through my thoughts in order for me to understand, process, and learn from everything around me. I need to talk it through. That's just what I do. I've been doing it my whole life. So if you worked with me, I would be talking things through with you quite a bit before I made a decision or took an action. We'd be talking them through together. So think about, how can you write down examples of, how do I live this value in my life? What's an example of me living this value at home, me living this value with my loved ones, my children, my family? What's an example of me living this out at work? How do I get to do this in my job? Writing down those examples will only strengthen and guide you in living those core values more and more. You know, core values are so sort of critical in that big picture as far as you and who you are and what you do. Oftentimes, when I talk about this activity, people who are truly honest with me come back and sort of challenge and say, that sounds like a great activity, but it also sounds a little on the soft side, a little sort of fluffy, like somebody will write down their core values, but what can they actually do with them? I think a way for you to look at that whole idea, especially around this last spot of action, is to look at it this way. A theorist who I mentioned actually very briefly earlier, name is Kathy Kolbe. I mentioned maybe that humanworks uses Kolbe wisdom in some of our work around talent. Kathy Kolbe has an example she gives to a lot of groups. Okay, she says this is the formula for success, and it's smart plus motivated equals success. And she asks other people what's missing from this equation. So those who aren't familiar with her work sometimes ponder on that. Eventually, someone will come up with the word action. Okay, you can be the smartest person in the world, the most motivated person in the world, but if you don't put something into action, if you don't take an action, there's no opportunity for success. I would say the same is true about your core values. Put them into action by understanding how they play out in your life. Understand how you can share them with others so that you can make those critical connections. We know it's so important to align your values with your employer's values to have meaningful work. We know that those values are going to give you direction. So my encouragement around that is make sure when you think about your values, you're thinking about value actions. Here's where we're going last. All right, everybody. I want to hear from you, hopefully in the comments section. I want to know what's one highlight or one core value or simply one action you think you can take based on authoring and establishing your own personal core values. So while you're hearing that and thinking about it, maybe getting a comment together, what's one highlight, one core value, or one action you can take after today, I want to share one more way that I've heard this value activity being used to benefit the people who attend it. And that idea is doing this values activity as a family or a couple. So if you have a significant other or you are a member of a family, I have heard of groups doing this activity together and actually crafting family core values or couple core values in that way. One of the beautiful things that it can do for a family unit or a unit of close friends or even a couple is sort of set those expectations. Hey, this is who we are. This is what we believe in. How will that guide the decisions that we all make together? How will it guide us in every sort of step of life that way? So if you have a highlight or a thought or a core value or one action that you think you're going to be taking using these core values today, go ahead and throw that into the comments. Last but not least, I just want to share my own gratitude one more time to DreamBank, of course, for inviting me here to talk to you all about this and share with you that I have the opportunity to come back and share a whole different topic on December 7th. So you've all heard of a work ethic. I imagine you all know about work ethic, but have you thought about your contentment ethic? So that's my question for you. What is a contentment ethic? How do you build it? How do you use it that way? So I want to get you thinking that way. If you're not sure exactly where you can go next with values or you're sort of at that spot, I want to give you some encouragement and thought that way. So Andy, if you would, Andy's going to put something into the comment section, and that's a landing page from humanworks with some thoughts, actually some free tools and some ways that you can continue your work with your personal core values. Or if you have great interest in anything around in organizations or your business's core values, you can find out what we do with business core values by clicking that link as well. So I'm just taking a quick peek over to some of those comments coming in. Thanks, Stephanie. Appreciate your thought there, helping evaluate decisions. I hope that's a huge benefit to you. Couple meetings. There you go. John, love the idea. So everybody, thank you so much for your time. You have all my gratitude. I think I'm giving just a little bit of your time back, Andy. So we're going to close shop just a little bit before that 1:30 deadline here. But want to share gratitude with all of you. Thanks for the opportunity. And if anyone wants to contact me, you can do that by clicking on that link that DreamBank shared in the comments and going to that landing page. Find me on LinkedIn. Reach out if you have questions about personal or business core values. I'd love to see where you finish, where you land, and what your finished product is. So if you want to share that too, would love to see that. Always excited to see someone living those core values and putting them to work in their life.
AJ, thank you so much for that. I think the one thing that really kind of stuck with me as I was following along is that, you know, core values should be gutsy. I think that's something that I hadn't maybe thought about in with different words in a different light, but that really struck a chord with me. So thank you so much for putting together that presentation, taking the time out of your day to join us here at DreamBank. Very excited for your upcoming presentation as well too, having rounding out the year with AJ and his insights. So looking forward to that. Excuse me. So as we wrap up, I just want to kind of say that here at DreamBank, we truly believe in the power of dreams and celebrate that our community is made up of fellow fearless dreamers. And AJ, as we wrap up, we always like to ask, what is one piece of advice that you have for someone who is pursuing a dream right now?
I think I love the question. Wow. I think it's don't settle. I know I already said that once today, but don't settle. If you've got that dream, one of my values is be resilient. That's guided me so well in life. It's not about getting knocked down. It's about getting back up. I know it's a little cliche, but don't settle. Keep going and make it exactly what you think it should be while you're going. Don't lose the vision of what that is. Don't settle. That would be mine. And trust your gut while you do it.
Thank you for that. Thanks again for everyone who tuned in. We look forward to continuing to learn and grow and dream together. You can learn more about upcoming DreamBank events and content designed with your dreams in mind at our website, which is amfam.com/DreamBank. I'll make sure to put that in the chat as well. And also by connecting with us on our social channels. So if you're watching this on our Facebook page or our LinkedIn or our YouTube page, that's a great resource as well. On behalf of American Family Insurance and DreamBank, we look forward to hosting you all again. Until then, keep dreaming fearlessly, and we will see you all next time.